No, you misread the title. Not E36, C36. Unless you actually paid real money for one of the worst automatic transmissions ever built, your M3 is already pretty sweet. High revving inline 6, 3 pedals, some good looks, and a pat on the back from some dudes you don't care about. The C36 comes with all of that too, except for the crucial 6-speed manual, but I promise you, I'll never convince the M crowd to care about this car, rowing through the gears or not. Just like you'll never convince me that your SMG is anything more than an acronym for some mushy gearbox. See, we have more in common than we did a minute ago. Not sure how I ended up in no man's land trying to keep the peace, but I'm here now, so let's drive. C36 AMG. Thank you, Brooks. This is Brook's dream AMG. I feel this is probably one of the most desirable AMGs. It's the first post-merger AMG, so some would argue it's the first neutered AMG, but it is the first kind of fully realized Mercedes AMG product. Let's go for a drive. Right now, I'm chasing Brooks in his manual swapped C55 AMG, a car from a completely different era. I just drove it. If you want to check out the video, it's in the description. Now, of course, the C36 AMG on paper competes directly with the E36 M3. Upon initial impressions, now I drove this from Brooks' garage out here to kind of our driving road, our filming road. And initial impressions are like, okay, the steering is much more dead and kind of lazy on center and around the initial kind of cruising speeds, which makes sense because this is a tourer. I would consider this kind of a grand tourer in sedan form. But then once you're in the corner, then you kind of get a little bit of that feel coming through the front tires, and then the car begins to speak to you. But you do have to get past the lazy old Mercedes feel, at least in the steering. It is a steering box car, so that's probably why. And this is where we see a complete difference in the M mentality of the time and the AMG mentality of the time. And that was not only manual transmissions, but in the driver nature of the car, the hardcore kind of nature of the car just wasn't really here, albeit the engine, 3.6 liter inline 6 under the hood, naturally aspirated, absolutely so smooth. Cruising on the highway, the resonance is great, it has a nice hum to it. I'm convinced inline 6s are the best at most things. They're probably the best all-around engine configuration, I think. They're very well balanced, perfectly balanced. They don't have much vibration. This is not a muscle car. It's purely the opposite, built for purely the opposite purpose that Brooks built his C55 for. And what does that make Brooks? That makes Brooks a well-rounded dude. See what we can make happen. Transmission actually shifts really quickly. I was expecting the laziest of lazy gearboxes here. It's not, and the engine is just smooth torque. There's no kick of cam timing at the top. It's very smooth, very linear. I hate using that word, but to pack what I'm feeling in the shortest breath possible, that's the one, linear. It's got a full liter on the RB26 and has that meaty, low down torque that encourages you to rev it out rather than forcing you to, like a lot of other smaller displacement NA engines, especially ones with strong cam changes. The last thing I wanted was to feel like half the tack was useless, especially with an auto. And that's not what I got. It's much quicker than I expected, and to be honest, seems like a bit of a waste to let it die with a torque converter, especially just imagining what those blips would sound like. It doesn't have a growl to it like some of the L series Datsun inline sixes have. This is quite a bit more refined than that. It's also big. It's a very big inline six. Talk about build quality though. The way this car has held up over the past 20 plus years is something that I feel could only be done by Mercedes. I mean, this isn't a completely stock car. It's got Bilstein dampers and Eibach springs, handles beautifully. And just the sound and the power you get above 4,000 RPM. It's a lot deeper than an RB or a JZ sounds. And no, it's absolutely not keeping up with the C55 AMG if Brooks was actually giving it full chat right now, which we're not. But this is a great car to kind of cruise at 7 to 8 tenths and just, it's a good street car. This is not a track car, nor do I think manual swapping this would turn it into a track car. You'd have to do so much with it, which would kind of ruin the character of it. But as is, it's a great driver's car. You just have to keep into consideration the era of which we're talking about here. We're not talking about the modern rah 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 V8 kind of era. That was fun. We'll do the last little bit without Brooks here. Anytime somebody tells me it's their dream car, the amount of nerves I have does go up a little bit, naturally. It's like, wow, how many years were you dreaming about this car? Did you have this car even in the back of your mind before you were able to get it? Now you're letting some stranger drive it? I mean, considering the transmission, and Brooks asked me this, he's like, hey, should I manual swap the C36? And to me, it's a tough sell because this has way more historic significance than the C55 does. That's obvious. It looks way better. It's virtually stock, carries all of the original driving characteristics for better or worse. And it's not that a manual would harm it, but it's just, the auto is the original character of this car, and it being kind of one of the first AMGs, it might hurt a little bit if you were to manual swap it, but everything is solid here. There's no rattles. I was in a brand new Ford Bronco Sport the other day, and there were already a couple of little rattles and squeaks on the interior. Now, that's not to say Ford's build quality overall is not good, because any other Ford product I've driven actually has been amazing. But that car in particular, as a comparison, this, however many years later we're talking about, and it has held up fantastic. I also think it just looks stunning. Original monoblock wheels, of course, AMG, just quintessential look here, black. It's gangster. No hood ornament on the front. It's got a different kind of flat badge there than a lot of the other cars would have. And it looks the part. This is one of the greatest looking Mercedes sedans they've ever built. And it's the right size. It's a little bit bigger than the 190E. And as my camera dies, as it does, I'll leave you with the smell of a good drive. Smoke puffing out of the wheel wells as it should. It's okay though. The car's just telling me what it'll need if Brooks does indeed do a manual swap at some point. Well, that and a few less pounds of muffler attached to the rear end, of course. Thanks for watching.